Hello and welcome to JoyConCast episode 11. I'm your host Nicholas, and this week we have a lot of Nintendo Switch news, game announcements, and I want to go through Nintendo's fiscal report. There was quite a bit of stuff that we didn't get to talk about last week because it broke out as soon as last week's episode went live. So, there's a lot that I want to talk about. We're going to get right into it. And one thing that we actually did not get to cover, one thing I couldn't talk about in last week is Persona 5 or Persona 5S, which is coming to Nintendo Switch. It is no Persona 5 and it's no Persona 5R, but we are kind of getting a Persona game on Switch. So last week there was the announcement of Persona 5 The Royale, which is pretty much Persona 5 with a bunch of new content, new stuff like that. It's like an updated game. It's like a not necessarily a remaster, but it's kind of like a game of the year type thing where it's bundled with new content, new modes, stuff like that. I assume. I don't know. I'm not big into Persona, but this is something that I've seen Persona games do in the past, and it was hoped and dreamed by many to come to Nintendo Switch, or at least Persona 5 come to Nintendo Switch in some way, shape, or form, and that's not the case. Instead, we're getting Persona 5S, which is basically like a Dynasty Warriors type game. It really is nothing at all what we've wanted, but it is titled Persona 5 Scramble, and it's basically a Warriors-styled game. It's not an RPG. It's nothing like what we've seen with Persona 5 or Persona 5 The Royale, which is coming to PS4. It's a Dynasty Warriors game, kind of similar to Hyrule Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors, stuff like that. And it's odd because on one hand, it's like, yeah, it's Persona 5. It's a Persona game on Switch, but on the other hand, I think Atlas knows what Switch owners want. And hey, look, if Atlas can't get Persona 5 or Persona 5 The Royale on Switch for either technical reasons, like it literally can't run on Switch, fine. Whatever. If they can't get Persona 5 on Switch, because I know Sony does a lot of like backing for some of the major Persona games, so that's why they're usually on PS3 or PS4. And if they can't get Persona 5 on Switch for that reason, fine. But I feel like this is kind of, it's something. I know there's a lot of people who are complaining about this, and they're complaining that they would have rather had nothing at all. I'm not that into this type of game, so I'm definitely going to skip it. But this is one of those games where if you wanted Persona 5 on Switch, chances are you're not going to play this. This probably isn't your cup of tea. These Dynasty Warrior type games probably don't interest you that much. And it is kind of an odd thing to release. It is coming to PS4 as well, so it's not only a Switch exclusive. It is coming to Nintendo Switch as well. But still, it's a very odd thing to announce for Switch. But at least there's some Persona content coming to Switch. I'm trying to look optimistic here. I'm trying to look on the bright side. At least there is something coming to Switch. So definitely sound off in the comments. Let me know, are you going to pick this up? Are you a fan of Persona 5? Are you a fan of RPG titles? And are you still going to pick this up? Why or why not? Let me know. I am very curious because this seems like a very odd release for Switch owners, when I'm sure Alice knows what it is Switch owners actually want. And again, if they can't get the game, Persona 5 on Switch for technical reasons or whatever, that's fine. And I feel like, hey, at least they're doing something. But this type of game probably isn't what will supplement, or it's not one of those games that Persona 5 fans will take if they can't get Persona 5, because it's probably out of their it's probably out of their comfort zone. It's probably not a genre of games that they're too interested in. But I figured I'd talk about it. I think this news dropped as soon as last week's episode went up, so obviously I did not get a chance to talk about it. But we're going to move on. There's a lot of stuff that I actually want to get into. This week has been pretty busy. There's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. So let's go ahead and get right into it. A first little random nitbit. Rocket League has a new home icon. I don't know why, but I read about it. I updated my Rocket League game, and now it has a new home icon. And I actually was playing a little bit the other night because of it. So here's your friendly reminder. If you have Rocket League on Switch, it has a new icon. Maybe play some games. Maybe if you haven't touched the game in a while like I have, hop online and see what it's like. I still do think Rocket League is a fine port on Switch. I think it looks halfway decent. It runs very well, especially in performance mode. It feels very fluid. And I do have it on PC. I have it on PS4 as well. And now I have it on Switch. And Rocket League is an overall fun game. But it has a new icon. Not sure why, but there you go. And next up, recent reports reveal Nintendo Switch Online is currently sitting at 9.8 million members and could hit 9 million by the end of the year. And this is actually kind of I don't know if it's surprising. We'll talk about this later, but Switch sales as of March 2019 are at 34.74 million units. And 10 million of those are Nintendo Switch Online members. Which, I'm not sure if this actually takes into account family, if it's individual members. Because, like, for example, on my Switch, I have different profiles. So I can access the European eShop and, you know, the American eShop, so on and so forth. If I made each of those members or profiles a Switch, you know, a Switch Online member through a family, does that count as, you know, 3 people right there? I'm assuming it does. So it's not accurate to say that like a third of Switch owners have the online, because I'm sure there are some Switch, I'm sure there's families that have one Switch and 5 people in the house share that Switch. I'm sure that's a realistic thing to think. So but still, 9.8 million, almost 10 million. That's pretty impressive, especially since it just launched last September. So it's been out for a while now, for a couple months, a handful of months, I should say, and it's already garnered nearly 10 million. So I'm sure once Pokemon comes out, we'll probably see a rise in memberships, since Pokemon Sword and Shield will definitely require an online membership to play online. Same thing with Super Mario Maker 2. I'm pretty sure that we'll see a membership being forced to access certain online features. And same thing with Animal Crossing. I'm sure if you want to go to a friend's town or visit their, you know, their village or whatever, you're going to need an online membership. So Nintendo definitely has a lot of games coming this year that are going to force people to subscribe to this membership to access online features. So yeah, I'd assume that 10 million will probably be as easy to hit by the end of the year. Probably before then, in all honesty. But still, it's kind of surprising because I hear a lot of people bashing it. I myself, I'm not a fan of it. I do have it. I did pay for a year subscription. And yeah, it could be better. I think the lineup of games you get every month could be much better. I'd love to see more customization with themes be incorporated. Maybe better deals for those who are membership or those who are members. I definitely think it could be better. I definitely think there are ways to hit 10 million faster and to continue to grow the amount of people who are members. Like I've said in the past, PlayStation and Xbox have set out a really clear way to get people to subscribe to your online service and to make it worth $60. I mean, I think PlayStation Network or PlayStation Plus rather definitely has some problems. It has some issues, but it does a lot to make me feel like, yeah, my $60 a year is worth it. And I've been a PS Plus member 4 years since I got my PlayStation. And I definitely think Nintendo could take some notes from Xbox and PlayStation and how they incorporate online. to get to 10 million members and more. But that's that. Moving on. There's a lot of stuff I want to get into, so there's a lot this week. But next up, and I just read about this the other day, and I was pretty excited to talk about this. An indie game known as A Dark Room was found to have a code editor hidden inside of it as an Easter egg. By allowing players to code apps. By connecting a USB keyboard, players could access a Ruby machine, which basically allowed players to access this code where you could make apps for your Nintendo Switch. Nintendo has removed the app, or rather the game, after the creator went to the internet to talk about the Easter egg. And I'm not sure if this was literally intended as an innocent Easter egg or if it was something a little more, I don't want to say sinister, but something a little more intentional to allow players to do some coding for their Switch. I'm not sure. Either way you look at it, why would you go to Twitter or Facebook or go to the internet and talk about it? But the creator did, and now it is removed from Switch. And this kind of raises a couple questions. How well does Nintendo inspect games, even though it's an Easter egg? I mean, like I said, you needed to connect a keyboard to it. And by pressing a button, you could access it. I guess Nintendo, who would think of that, first of all? But how well does Nintendo look into the games that go up on Switch? I mean, you look at the Switch eShop, and there is just a ton of, like malware, basically. Like, just free-to-play mobile games, 99-cent, $2 looking mobile games. And the eShop is definitely not of a high quality. It's definitely it doesn't look very clean. It doesn't look very nice. There are times where if you go to like the best selling or the featured, yeah, some of the more indie highlights and AAA games get featured, some of the nicer looking games to have on your platform. But otherwise, if you go to recent releases, it's just a bunch of nonsense, really. There's just a bunch of, I'm sure there's some hidden gems in there. I'm sure there's some really genuine good games, but there's just a bunch of junk, it looks like. And I'm curious as to how well Nintendo actually inspects each game that goes up on the eShop. But it is also interesting how easy it is, how easy it is to incorporate a mode to make content like apps for the Switch and to do coding and stuff like that. It actually seems pretty easy. So I'm not sure to the extent of what it is you can actually create with the game. I'm actually going to see. Let me actually look into this because I don't know what exactly. So the secret code editor was a programming language called Ruby. And the creator of the game proclaimed, "Last week I released A Dark Room to the Nintendo Switch. Within the game, I also shipped a Ruby interpreter and a code editor as an Easter egg. This Easter egg effectively turns every consumer-spec Nintendo Switch into a Ruby machine." And like I said, in order to access the editor, you needed to plug in a USB keyboard. And of course, because of that, because he took to the internet, Nintendo took notice of it, and they took it right off the eShop. And he went on also to say that a simple toy sandboxed environment has been framed as this massive exploit. And of course, it's the community that exploits these things that push it to that level. I'm partly to blame with my sensationalized media posts. So he's obviously realizing, and like I said, I don't know if this really was an exploit or if this was just intended as an Easter egg. But he did say that it wasn't meant to be such, and that it was just a fun thing to add. And I mean, I can't imagine that there's much that you could actually do within an Easter egg. within a game on Switch. I'm not sure that there's much you could do in terms of making like Netflix on Switch, or making your own game, or making, homebrew or stuff like that. Like I can't imagine the extent of what this Rubin machine offered was limitless. But still, there you go. I'm not sure if you can still access the game. I'm assuming if it's pulled off the eShop, there's probably some restrictions now for those who already have it. But there you go. A dark room was found to have an exploit. Nintendo removed it. It is an interesting thing, and I'm curious as to how the publisher behind this team and the creator of the game itself will move forward with Switch releases. I'm sure Nintendo will be a little extra cautious when it comes to games that they release on Switch. Speaking of games on Switch, let's take a moment to talk about some upcoming games on our favorite hybrid. There were quite a lot of releases in April. And I only got to like a handful of them. There's still so many that I need to go back and play. But let's look to the future and actually talk about some upcoming Switch games. Of course, this isn't everything that's coming to Switch in May, but some of the highlights, some of the games I've been looking at, some of the bigger releases for Switch. Definitely let me know which ones of these games you're planning on picking up, which ones you're excited for, which ones you're skipping. Definitely let me know. But upcoming Switch titles for May, we have Saints Row the 3rd, the full package, which will launch on May 10th for $39.99. And up until May 10th, I believe it actually expires on the 10th, you can actually pre-purchase this game on the Switch eShop now and to get 10% off. So it's $35.99. Of course, the day it launches, it expires, but I've been thinking about picking this game up. It is a $39.99. It is a $40 game for a port, a game that's been around for a couple years now. I think it looks fun. I don't know. I've been thinking about it. It'll definitely be one that I give some thought. I have some time to think about it. It doesn't come out for another week or so, but let me know what you guys are thinking about it, because it looks fun. But for $40, I just feel like it's a little too much for a game like that that's been out for a while. But next up, we have Resident Evil 0, and Resident Evil 4, which are launching on May 20th for $29.99 each. And we actually talked about this weeks back on this show about the greed of Capcom, and all of these games are less than $29. I actually think they're $19.99 on Steam and PlayStation 4, Xbox One, all of that good stuff. And they're an extra $10 on Switch. And I've been really considering it, and I still feel like that's just unfair. Especially, it's not like these games are new by any means. It's not like they came out a year or two ago. They're older games. I mean, some of these games came out a decade ago. More than that. So the extra $10 just seems a little harsh, a little stingy, a little wrong. I definitely want to pick these games up on Switch, and I was looking forward to picking them up all on Switch. But at $30 each, I'm definitely going to wait for a sale for them, or wait until Halloween, maybe later this year. They'll go down in price. I'm not sure, but $29.99 when they're much cheaper on other platforms. In my opinion, I don't know if it's justifiable, but let me know what you guys think. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about the pricing for these games. Next up, Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered launches on May 21st for $39.99. Another, actually no, this one's, well, I guess it's technically a port, but Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered actually did launch in April for other platforms. And it ended up getting a delayed release for Switch, so it's now coming to Switch, and it is the same price. It's also $39.99 elsewhere, so that's nice to see. I'm glad it's not an extra $10. I'm glad it's the same price. Yeah, it sucks that there was a delay for it, but I really do hope that it means the game is more polished and optimized and made for Switch, because I've never been the biggest Assassin's Creed fan. I've tried playing through, I think it's Origins. Was that the 2017 one? I think it was Origins. I think I tried playing. I never got anywhere close to beating it, but this one I may give a shot. It just launched on May 21st. I may end up giving this game a shot. So we'll have to see. Team Sonic Racing also launches on May 21st for $39.99 as well. And I'm not too big into racing games other than Mario Kart, but I know a lot of people are looking forward to this one. So Team Sonic Racing also launches alongside Assassin's Creed 3 for, again, $39.99. Speaking of Saints Row the Third, there was a gameplay trailer recently. The words are slipping from me. Let me redo all of that. Saints Row the Third, the full package, gets a gameplay trailer for Switch, so it actually has an official trailer now, and I'm hoping that gameplay was actually from Switch. There are moments throughout the trailer where I noticed there are Xbox 360 controls on the screen and keyboard controls for the PC copy of the game. So I hope there's some truth to that trailer looking at least somewhat similar to Switch. If not, I hope that gameplay trailer actually is Switch. It is going to be very disappointing if it's not. It looks decent. I mean, like I said, this game came out for 360, PS3, I believe, PC, all that stuff. So, like, I can't imagine this game not running on Switch. And it is an open world sandbox type game. It is kind of like a GTA game of sorts, you know, an open world sandbox, go anywhere, do anything type game. And so I'm kind of excited to see this game coming to Switch, and hopefully this ushers in a new wave of games like that on Switch. I don't know if we'll see GTA 5 come to Switch. I would assume by now Rockstar is probably working on GTA 6, and I'm not sure if it's worth putting GTA 5 on Switch. I can't imagine how big of a download that would be. I can't imagine how much they would have to condense and sacrifice, and the sacrifices you'd have to make to get the game running on Switch. I mean, it is a 360 PS3 game, so I can't imagine it's that much, but still, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, even the PS3 and Xbox 360, those were machines that you plugged into an outlet and they stayed in your living room or your bedroom or wherever. The Switch is a portable console. You know, it doesn't need constant power. It's a completely different beast, even from 360 and PS3. And while the internals may be up to par or on that same playing field as those other systems, I'm sure there are a lot of questions and a lot of work that would have to be done to get a game like GTA on Switch. But Saints Row the Third will be kind of a fun look at what games like GTA and others could look like on Switch, and I'm curious to see how well this game does as well, because there have been very mixed reactions to this from what I've seen on Reddit, and there are some people who they look excited for it. There are other people who are definitely passing on the game. There are other people who want the first two or the latest releases. I'm not sure about Saints Row as a game franchise in terms of which one's the best, which one's the worst. I don't know. I've never played a Saints Row game. I've always wanted to. I've always wanted to check them out. They always looked just fun. Like, the sandbox environment just looks fun. So maybe I'll end up checking it out on Switch. Maybe I'll get it while it's 10% off and give it a go and kind of give my thoughts on the game as I play it on Switch. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an exciting thing whenever a new game of sorts comes to Switch. You know, whenever a sandbox game like this comes to Switch, or whenever a new horror game or something that's different that we haven't had on Switch before. Obviously, we've had open world games on Switch before, but a game like Saints Row, where it's very mature, it looks pretty gory at times. It looks very adult rated. It looks very open world, very sandboxy. It's different. It's different from what we've seen on Switch before, and so performance and reception and how well it just performs in terms of it being a game running on Switch and in terms of how well it sells. Those are all important questions and all things that I want to know, and it's exciting. It's exciting whenever a new game of sorts like this actually comes to Switch. But moving on, another game that I want to talk about briefly, Super Mario Maker is confirmed for a June 28th release date, and I don't know if I can't remember. I remember when this game was announced, I believe it did say it was set for a summer release, and I think shortly after that, I don't know why, I feel like I heard somewhere that it was coming out June, and it was coming out the 28th. No, I think when they announced it on the direct, I think they did say June. Yes, I think they did say June. And I think because of that, Amazon listed it for June 28th because that's the last possible day Nintendo could release the game within June, because they're not going to release it on a weekend. They're going to release it on a Friday. And June 28th is, of course, a Friday. So I think that's where I heard it. And I was like, oh, that kind of makes sense. Because Nintendo likes to release things around E3. Either before or after E3. So this kind of made sense. Like in 2017, it was Splatoon. I think that came out in July. Actually, I think that came out after E3. I can't remember what came out. No, I think ARMS came out in June. Yes, ARMS actually came out in June. Splatoon was a big game, though, for Nintendo. That ended up coming out in July. Last year, Mario Tennis Aces came out in June. I think shortly after Nintendo's E3. So there usually is a summer game kind of around E3. I've noticed Nintendo's doing that for the past two or 3 years now. So I kind of expected Super Mario Maker would take that place. This is a fun game. It's a pretty big game. And getting a confirmed release date around E3, even though it's like weeks after E3, still, I think that it gives Nintendo plenty of time to talk about this game, answer some questions, show off some gameplay, get people hype and excited for it, and launch it at the end of the month. And the game is still coming out pretty early when you consider when it was announced. It's coming out in less than 6 months from its initial announcement. So that's pretty quickly to release a game. I've also heard, and I'm not too sure about this because I've heard different things, but I've heard that if you pre-order the game, you do get a stylus along with it. So, and I also I want to know how this game works in docked versus handheld, because obviously with Super Mario Maker, you had the Wii U gamepad, which allowed you to essentially use the touchscreen to make your levels, and then you could play on the big screen TV and actually play it like a traditional Mario game, whereas the Switch doesn't have that touchscreen available at all times. So I've been doing some Super Smash Bros. Ultimate stage building in handheld, and it's been an alright experience. It's kind of it's not, I cannot do what any of these other people have done. I did, maybe if we get some time, I'll talk about some of the fun stages I've found. There's some really, really cool stages on the stage builder for Smash Bros. Just some really, really, really cool ones. I could never do that. But I do want to get a feel for how Super Mario Maker, in terms of actually making levels, will work on Switch. Obviously, there will probably, obviously there will be more of a, what's the word I'm thinking of, a focus on handheld play when it comes to creating and making the levels, just because with a touch screen, it has to be so much easier, especially with a stylus. It has to be easier. But I'm sure Nintendo has to figure out a way to actually incorporate making levels even when you're not in handheld. Because I'm sure there are times where people want to make levels on their TV and they don't want to undock the Switch. So I'm sure that'll be a highlight of E3. If not a highlight, then it'll at least be something that we kind of get a glimpse at. Hopefully by then, Nintendo kind of answers some questions, wraps up some concerns for the game. I'm excited either way. This will definitely be a day one for me. It looks so much fun, and it'll definitely be a game that I play all summer for sure. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense that this game of all games is releasing around E3. Just because Nintendo can kind of create a lot of hype for it. There's a lot of fun things that they could do with marketing and stuff like that. So Super Mario Maker 2 is definitely going to be a blast. And again, it launches June 28th, which is the last possible day they could release it in June. But hey, it's coming out in June. That's not too far away at all. And E3 itself isn't, man, that is not that far away as well. That's 4 months away. It's pretty close. It's going to be here sooner than we realize. But coming up, the Switch update may have included a boost mode to overclock the console, shrinking load times for games like Zelda. Now, I don't understand overclocking or boosting performance or stuff like that on a technical level, but on a I guess a normal level, I understand that this allows for games to run faster. And I will say, I have been playing The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I've actually been Let's Playing it over on my main Let's Play channel. And I have noticed shorter load times. I have noticed that load times are a lot quicker than what they were even months ago. So I believe that, yeah, there probably is some merit to this. Because I have noticed playing games like Zelda, it does feel like load times are shrinked. I haven't been playing Mario Odyssey, so I'm not sure if how that gets affected. I did hear that just gets slightly affected because the VR updates for Zelda and Mario came out for Labo support. I think this launched around the same time, but basically this makes games load faster. It makes them allows for the Switch to overclock its CPU instead of 1 gigahertz, which is the normal speed, to 1.75 in certain situations. So this launched with update 8.0 for the Switch, which we talked about when that released. And version 1.6.0 for The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild includes the VR mode like I talked about, but it also reduces the loading times for the games. So instead of 21 seconds, or it's now 21 seconds to load a save instead of 31, and fast travel takes 11 seconds rather than 19, and entering shrines takes 7 seconds instead of 10. And I have noticed this. I have entered shrines, fast traveling, loading saves. I have noticed, while some of them may not be drastic, I have noticed games, the game just loads faster. I have noticed that. Even before, I think this came out a couple days ago. I've noticed it before I read about this. I was like, wow, these load times are kind of faster. Like, I didn't, like, say anything. I didn't really notice, like, it was kind of in the back of my head while playing the game. I was like, wow, this seems slightly faster. I didn't think anything of it, but after reading about this, it definitely makes sense. But like I said, right now, it affects Super Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild because of the VR update. They kind of coincide with the 8.0.0 update. But it doesn't seem to affect any other games, but it seems like this could be the beginning of games loading faster on Switch in certain situations. And from what I'm reading, developers would need to update their games and incorporate this to make use of this boost mode, is kind of what it's dubbed. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye out for any upcoming patches or updates for any current games. And maybe they'll perform better. Maybe they'll, at the very least, loading better. But this is kind of what I was talking about with Mortal Kombat 11 when that came out on Switch. And while, yeah, right now it may not be the best version of the game, over time it'll look better, it'll run better, it'll get better, it'll load faster. And I think that's already happening. And yeah, maybe this overclock will only work in certain situations where it's got to load a lot of content, or maybe it has a lot of stuff it needs to render or load or whatever. I'm not sure how this works on a technical level. But there are situations where, yeah, I think it kind of calls for loading games faster, loading more content, and overclocking the Switch. And I think it's cool that we're able to do this now, or Nintendo's found out a way to do this. So it makes me eager for the future of Switch games. And who knows, maybe we'll see a Nintendo Switch where it's at 2 gigahertz instead of 1, and games load even faster and run even better. I know that's wishful thinking, but still, it is exciting news. And like I said, with Mortal Kombat, games are just going to get better over time as Nintendo themselves continue to optimize their hardware, and developers figure out ways to work with what they have. So that's that. So make sure you update your Switch and check for your copy of Zelda and Mario and update those. You may get shrinked load times. And look out for upcoming patches for other games as well that may incorporate boost mode to load their games faster on Switch as well. Speaking of boost, the Switch isn't the only thing that's boosting. Switch sales are also boosting, as the Nintendo Switch has sold more than the N64 now. As of March 2019, the Switch has sold 34.74 million units and surpasses the N64's lifetime sales of 32.93 million units, which is crazy. It is pretty nuts. And I didn't realize the N64 only sold that much. But the Switch has overshadowed it. It's eclipsed it. It's gone over it. And it's keep on growing. It's going to keep on growing. As of right now, the next milestone it has to hit is the SNES, which is at a lifetime of 49.1 million units. So that's going to be exciting. And I think, honestly, this year, there is so much coming out this year. I think that's a very real... I don't know if that's necessarily a goal to hit that within the next fiscal year. But with Luigi's Mansion 3, Animal Crossing, Fire Emblem, Pokemon, Super Mario Maker, new games like Astral Chain, there's a ton of good stuff that was originally on 3DS that's now coming over to Switch. And I think now is a really great time for Nintendo to capitalize on that by incorporating more favor for handheld play, or dare I say, release a Switch Mini, which is more for handheld play. I think this year's gonna be a good year for Nintendo. Animal Crossing, Pokemon, Mario Maker, Fire Emblem, those are games that I think are gonna sell really, really exceptionally well. And if Nintendo makes it easier for those with a 3DS to buy into the Switch system, yeah, I really see Nintendo Switch surpassing SNES very, 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 very soon. I think it's crazy how many quality titles Nintendo has still running after all of these years, and how well they sell each and every year. So I'm excited to see how well the Switch actually does by the end of this year, because there are some really big games coming out this year. And even like Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, I know those did really well. They're Pokemon games. Pokemon games are going to do exceptionally well, and especially brand new entries, brand new games, it's going to be nuts. So I'm optimistic. I definitely think the SNES is going to be overshadowed by Switch. My question is, will it outsell the Wii? The Wii is currently at 101 million. I mean, Nintendo themselves has said they want the Switch around for a long haul. They want it around for a decade. And obviously that doesn't mean the same Switch unit around for a decade. I'm sure they would, work on it and implement new things and release upgraded systems over the time, like a PS4 Pro, Xbox One X type of deal. But if they really want to keep it around from 2017 until 2027, a whole decade, that's a lot of time to make up for sales, release new entries into games, bring back old games. And I don't know. I think it's possible. I think the nature of the Switch is unique and it's different, and it's not something that other consoles can offer yet. And I think that's what Nintendo really needs to capitalize on, is the hybrid nature of their system, because that's what's going to sell it. As we move forward with game streaming and stuff like Google Stadia, where you can play any game anywhere on any device, I don't think it's going to be harder to sell a Switch, because I think there are limitations that come with internet streaming. But still, as hybrid gaming, as the platform kind of dies and it becomes more of a service, I think it will be harder. I think it might be harder for Nintendo to sell the idea of the Switch, even though you don't need a constant subscription to play Switch games. You don't need a constant internet connection to play Switch games, and it's easier to dock and undock the Switch, I think, than it'll be to move games around different platforms. So I think the Switch has a lot going for it, and the SNES is definitely an easy goal for it to hit. The Wii, I don't know. It's a different story, but Nintendo, they have a lot. I'm sure they have some tricks up their sleeves, and I'm sure they have plans for how they want to go about selling the Switch for the next 10 or so years. So it's gonna be surprising to see if it comes anywhere near. Well, if the SNES sold at least half of Wii, that would be intriguing to see it sell half of what the Wii made, and to see where it goes after that is pretty exciting. Next up, we have some more sales figures. In 4 months, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate has sold 13.81 million units, making it the third highest-selling Switch game, and outselling the entire Wii U sales. What on earth is this? So yeah, it's sold more than the entirety of the Wii U, which is pretty crazy. But like I said, right now it's sitting at 13.81 million sales. It's the third best-selling game. At number 2 is Super Mario Odyssey at 14.44 million, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at 16.69 million. And The Legend of Zelda is number 4 at 12.77 million. Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Pokemon Let's Go Eevee are at 10.63 million. And then from there we get under the double digits. So Splatoon's at 8 million. Super Mario Party's at 6 million. New Super Mario Bros. Is at 3. 1-2 Switch is surprisingly enough at 2.97 million. And Mario Tennis Aces at 2.64 million. So it looks like a lot of people, if you buy a Switch, they're buying Smash, Mario Odyssey, and most importantly, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And it's I mean, obviously, if the system itself if the Switch itself outsells the previous console before it, then yeah, it only makes sense that the games that are released on said platform are also going to outsell the games or the system itself that was released before. It's still kind of it's crazy to think how awful the Wii U sold. It really is. Only 13 million. That's not a lot at all. That's really not a lot at all. And the Switch has definitely overshadowed that by a long one. That's crazy. But Switch is continuing to do well. Switch games are continuing to do well. And of course, all of this comes from Nintendo's fiscal report for the fiscal year. And there's also some stuff I did want to talk about real quickly. As far as what I've read and what I can make sense of, there's been no games in which got deconfirmed. So Animal Crossing, Luigi's Mansion, and Pokemon, so on and so forth, is still set to launch this year, which is exciting because I've read some stuff where Animal Crossing might get delayed to next year. This title may not come out till then, and tons of crazy stuff, but Nintendo has not deconfirmed any game. Everything is still set for a 2019 launch that has been announced alongside a 2019 launch. And honestly, I 100% expect Pokemon to launch this November. 100%. I don't see. I I just don't see in any situation where it doesn't launch on November. I do wonder where Animal Crossing fits into play. I think we talked about this as well in another episode about what would release when. But I'm very excited nonetheless for E3. I definitely think Super Mario Maker 2 will have a huge presence. I think Pokemon and Animal Crossing will be the big highlights of E3. Those are huge games. Those are going to be big sellers. And I really want Animal Crossing. I want a release date. I want a release date confirmed, to be honest. I want gameplay. I want all that good stuff, Nintendo. But Fire Emblem Three Houses will also, I'm sure, get some love because that comes out the next month. So I'm sure there'll be some more stuff on that. Astral Chain, I'm excited to see at E3 as well. As we get closer and closer and closer to E3, of course, I'll have E3 coverage. I'll talk about my thoughts, my predictions, and all that as well. I do have some stuff planned for this show for E3, for Nintendo. I have some stuff in the works, stuff planned that I'd like to do for Nintendo's E3. So hopefully that comes to fruition, but we'll definitely have to see. But as far as right now, Animal Crossing, still 2019, which is exciting for me, and I'll take it. I would talk about what I've been playing this week, but I think we talked about that last week with Cuphead and Mortal Kombat 11. Still playing away at Mortal Kombat 11. I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. There was a patch for the game which also added some stuff. Announcer voices, the tutorials for characters where you can actually earn skins. That's in the game now. There's a couple other things. There's a whole patch notes. So if you have Mortal Kombat 11 for Switch, I'd highly recommend you take a look at the patch notes and see what's now included in the game. But I've been playing a lot of that. I'm still having fun with it. I'm still liking it. So still playing away at story mode and all that. So I wish I could see how much time I've synced into the game on Switch. Unfortunately, I have to wait another couple days since Nintendo doesn't give you your playtime within the first 10 days, oddly enough. Cuphead as well. I haven't actually played Cuphead in a minute. But I don't think I've played it since. I don't think I've played it since Mortal Kombat 11 came out, because I've been mostly playing Mortal Kombat 11. So I'm gonna have to get back into Cuphead. That might be a little game night tonight where I play some Cuphead. Because I've been focusing so much on Mortal Kombat, I've kind of been missing out on Cuphead. So, but that's what I've been playing this week. Let me know what you guys have been playing. Let me know what upcoming games you are looking forward to for Nintendo Switch. And Persona 5 Scramble. Let me know your thoughts on that. It's an interesting one for sure, especially when you consider how different it is compared to what Persona 5 is. I'm interested in seeing how well it's going to sell. But with all that said, this was episode 11 of the Joy-Con Cast. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, everyone, have yourself a good one.